Good afternoon, mathematicians. In this video, I am going to walk you through, let me get to the right page here. I'm going to walk you through, in comparing bits and pieces, I'm going to walk through, let's see, where is it? Nope, that's not it. A little bit further up here. Here we go. I'm going to walk you through pages 16. No, just page 16. Yeah, just page 16 here. Maybe I'll do one or two of these on page 17, but that's all part of your playlist for today. Okay, so in this video, we're going to review ratios and how we write them. We're going to talk about maybe some unit rates. We'll see if we get to that. All right, so starting off, a blank is a comparison of two quantities by division. Now you guys might be able to tell by the title of this page here and also its subtitle, you might assume that we would write a ratio is a comparison of two quantities or two numbers by division. Now I don't want you guys to get freaked out by this word division here, because the way we write ratios, for example, you can write 2 to 3 like this. You can also write it like this as a fraction. Now I want you guys to remember that fractions are just division problems. I would read this fraction as 2 divided by 3. The numerator divided by the denominator. So I could translate this to 2 divided by 3. That's all a fraction is. So when they say a ratio is a comparison of two quantities by division, they're probably referring to a ratio written as a fraction, which is 2 to 3. Okay, so don't be confused by that. All right, next bullet point. It says a ratio can be used to represent relationships within a set, so parts to a whole, or between two sets. Okay, so for instance, we can use a ratio to compare the number of roses in a vase to the number of tulips in the vase. We call this ratio, we call this a part-to-part ratio, because we are comparing a part of the total flowers, which is the number of roses, to the number of tulips, which is another part of the total flowers. So we call it a part-to-part because we're not comparing the total number of flowers to these numbers here. All right, and then if we take a look at the next example, it says, or we can compare the number of green frogs, so the number of green frogs in a pond, to the total number of frogs in the same pond. We call this type of ratio a part-to-whole ratio, because we're comparing a small part of the total, which is the number of green frogs, and we're comparing that to the total number of frogs, the whole number of frogs. Okay, and there are three different ways that we can write ratios. First way is a fraction, and I want to highlight and emphasize these last three words behind it. Fraction in simplest form. I'm going to make 2 underlines. No, I'm going to make 3 underlines. We need to simplify our fractions here. Well, how do we do that? Let's review how we do that. What if I have the ratio of 4 to 6? To simplify a fraction, I need to find a number that goes evenly into the numerator and the denominator. It looks like a number that goes into both 4 and 6 is 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide the numerator by 2. I'm going to divide the denominator by 2, and let's see what I get. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. Now this is my ratio written as a fraction in simplest form. So then I can write it using a colon, and now I can write it using the word 2. So there I have all three ways of writing a ratio. The important concept here is writing your ratio in simplest form. So example 1 says to write the ratio that compares the number of footballs to the number of tennis balls. So the number of footballs, I see 1, 2, 3, and 4. So there are 4 footballs. And I'm going to write this as a fraction to how many tennis balls? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. To, hey, 6 tennis balls. Now let's simplify this. We actually already did this right above this. So we know to divide the numerator and the denominator by 2. So now we get the ratio of 2 to 3. Now, please make sure, as a reminder, please make sure you're paying attention to the way we write our ratio. They want the number of footballs and then the number of tennis balls. So make sure that the number of footballs goes before the number of tennis balls. Okay? Example number 2. It says to write the ratio that compares the girls to the total number of students. So let's see, we have 1, 2, we have 3 girls. Okay, so that's going to go in our numerator here. And then total number of students, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So 9 total students. Let's go ahead and simplify this fraction here. I need a number that goes into 3 and 9. So if you think about that for a second, hopefully you've come to the same conclusion that 3 goes into both of those. So let's see what I get. I'm going to move down here. So 3 over 9, I divide the top and the bottom by 3, the numerator and the denominator by 3. And so I get 1 to 3, and that's my answer. All right, we're going to practice again. Now, whenever you guys get to a new section of problems or you start a new page of problems, one very important thing you must do is read the directions, because the directions tell you the rules, and if you follow the rules, then you get all the points. If you don't follow the rules, you might lose some points. So let's read the directions here. It says, let's practice. Write each ratio 3 different ways. Don't forget to simplify each ratio. There we go. So there are some pretty important rules in there. So the first one, it says the number of dogs to the number of cats. So I'm going to write, let me erase these underlines here. Those took up a lot of space. I have 2 dogs to 2 cats. If I were to write this as a fraction, I do 2 dogs over 2 cats. But I want to simplify this. So what number goes into 2 and 2? Hopefully you said 2. So I'm going to divide the numerator and the denominator by 2. So now I get 1 to 1. So the 3 ratios I'm going to write: 1 dog to 1 cat. I can also write this as a fraction, 1 to 1. And then I can also write like this, 1 to 1. All right, the next one. 4 roses out of 24 flowers. So I'm going to start this as a fraction here. There's not a lot of space to write, I'm sorry. So for I'm going to do number 2 over here in green. So for number 2, I have 4 roses out of 24 flowers. Now, what's the biggest number that can go into 4 and 24? If you think about that for a second, hopefully you come to the same conclusion that I can divide the numerator and the denominator by 4. So I get 1 rose to 6 flowers. So now I'm going to write my ratios. 1 to 6, 1 colon 6, and 1 to 6. There we go. And last one, number 3, 12 circles to 8 squares. So I'm going to write that as a fraction first. 12 circles to 8 squares. And let's simplify this. What is the biggest number that can go into 8 and 12? Hopefully you arrived at the same conclusion that 4 can go into both of those. So 12 divided by 4 is 3, and then 8 divided by 4 is 2. So our ratio is 3 to 2. And you can write this like a fraction. You can write it with a colon. You can also write it in words, 3 to 2. And there we go. Okay, so remember that you must follow the directions. The directions are super important, and if you follow them, you will get all of the points. You won't lose any points, okay? So please read the directions carefully, especially when you start page 17, which is your next task. It says to write each ratio as a fraction in simplest form, using a colon and using the word to, okay? So with that, you can go ahead and get started on page 17. Don't forget to show me that you completed page 16, okay? All right, you guys. Happy studying. See you in the next lesson.